You've assembled your miniature, you've put it all together, and now you need to prime it. Priming actually is just applying a paint which you're going to be subsequently applying additional layers onto. It kind of acts as a means of leveling the miniature that you're painting on, fills in just microscopic like little spaces so everything becomes more leveled, and it gives you a painting surface that your paint has a much easier time adhering to rather than say metal or hard plastic. I'm Khan and you're watching The Wrath of Minis. I realized that these topics, assembling, priming, zenithal stuff, all that, it's a bit boring really. And I know that kind of, it's just, it's part of the start points we have to get from point A to point B. So stick with me guys on this one. We're gonna get to the fun part. We're gonna get to painting, we're gonna get to layering and figuring out all the technical parts of blending and glazing and all that good stuff. But before we get there, we have to do this stuff here because this is the groundwork. This is where we start from, get through these things, we'll get this right, boom, then each step subsequently is just going to be that much easier in our process. Do you absolutely need to prime? No, you don't. I have seen people who paint directly onto it without priming. And I have actually heard some people who don't prime because they think that the paint will obscure additional detail. Sure, that is a possibility if you want to go that way. However, for the majority of us, we are going to prime. There are lots of priming colors out there, which you're going to see. You could be like, oh, we'll go online. It's like, how many colors can there be? Well, there's practically every single color under the sun. You might ask yourself, which priming color works best for me? Which one would I like to do? When you're priming, you're thinking about what color you're going to be building up to. That's probably the most important thing to be contemplating. And it depends also on how vibrant of a color you're looking for. If you're looking for dark undertones, then you might want a black primer. If you're looking for more vibrant and bright tones, then you might want a white primer or something close to white. And so with this chart here, I'm hopefully just showing you how colors change depending on the color underneath it. Now, you have to understand that paints aren't inherently absolutely opaque. There are indeed levels of transparency. And generally with the thinness of paint that we work with, then you can see the undercoating showing. So this kind of shows, maybe helps, is indicative as to why so many professional painters do something called the zenithal, which we have a black color and then we apply a bright light, which is a white, and then we work between those two colors, which would create a natural gradient. This here hopefully shows you how vibrant certain colors are and how muted colors are depending on the undercoat that exists. So with, say, a orange or a yellow, the yellow is very, very vibrant here and then becomes a bit strange over black. So if we wanted to be painting a yellow or an orange color, we definitely don't want black to be the undertone of it. We want to have it to be a brighter color. And again, if we're dealing with darker colors, well, like say these blues and this purple, well, then a black undercoat is great for that. But we can also still work with a white one a little bit if we needed to. For the most part, you're going to see everyone using black. It's a straightforward color. It can give you the sense of what shadows would look like. Some people would also do zenithal lighting, which will be then white on top of black. Or it could just paint it all white. So, those extremes there. You got black, all black, you can do all white, and you can do zenithal, which is black and white. Perfect. That gets your start layer down. Or you can try and prime it to a color closer to what you are trying to achieve. This could be a little tricky, but it might be a great way of doing armies and stuff like that. If you know that you want to paint it red, then you might want to get a primer that is red, and then so you've already kind of covering a majority of the major base color. I think majoritively the pros out there will utilize zenithal lighting. And then with an airbrush, they will take their major first layer coats and apply it on top of. Whereas people who don't have an airbrush will have to do this by hand. If you're painting an army, then I would really recommend buying an airbrush. It can save you a ton of time and effort and work, which is difficult to overstate. Painting so many troops by hand can be excruciatingly hard on you, and doing it consistently can be very tricky. Sure, at first you want to do it so you're getting better just by the application, but applying mass color over many things is a great way, especially with an airbrush, to get a cohesive look over your entire army. Obviously, priming as well. An airbrush is a great way of being able to do it in your own home and without having to go outside. And then, of course, you don't have to be so concerned with weather conditions when you're trying to prime with an aerosol can. The thing about also with primer cans is that if you get it wrong a little bit, and that can happen due to humidity or just temperatures and controls of various things, or if you're too far or too close and you apply too much, for some reason with primer cans, it's actually very difficult to remove that primer from the model afterwards. Perhaps it has like a better binding agent or something to it, so it like really gets stuck on. But if you ever get into the habit of trying to like remove paint from your model with like various like paint remover stuff, it's much harder from a can than say from an airbrush. So the airbrush sense is much more forgiving because you can always go back and like remove that paint, where I have really struggled doing it from a primer can. Sometimes, I don't know, for whatever circumstances you cannot go outside and you don't have an airbrush, you can actually get surface primer for an airbrush and apply it by hand rather than doing it through either one of those sort of aerosol kind of methods. Like anything, you need to be a little careful with it, but you absolutely can and will work if in a pinch. I wouldn't readily apply it like this because obviously you have to be pretty good with your paint consistency and just making sure that it's all even. But if you're in a pinch, it absolutely can do the job. At the end of the day, whichever way that you decide to prime your models, it's a worthwhile thing doing. It's going to give us effectively a canvas, or make it easier for our paint to be applied layer by layer on top of the miniature. This concept here will work and apply to all miniatures of every single kind, that be it regular hard plastic, soft plastic, resin, and or metal. We will take our black. It can be from a spray can. Games Workshop makes great blacks and great whites for the spray can. But there are tons of other companies out there. There will be Vallejo, there will be Army Painter, there will be a plethora, there's Krylon, various other things like that. For the most part, we will be priming in a matte color. However, there are a bunch of other types of primers out there. There are metallic ones, there are glossies and things like that. If you're using a glossy primer, you might find that you have a hard time having your paint adhere to that miniature. So for the most part, I would say I recommend going with matte primers if you can. Something like this here is, you can get them for free. They're kind of like your mixing paint sticks that you get from like Home Depot. And I've just got a chunk of them because I just picked them up. And if you get some blue tack, like so, you can just apply them to the stick. You've got a little handle hold here. And I tend to do mine just a few at a time. You know, you can also get a big like cardboard box type thing. And again, using blue tack, just make sure that the model won't fall over due to the pressure of the can. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing short little sprays back and forth. You don't want to apply too much paint at any one time. You don't want it to be laying down thick globs of paint. You also don't want to be too far away from it when you're painting it, because if you do, the paint actually might dry before it reaches the model, creating a texture, which you definitely do not want whilst you are painting. Really, that's it. All you're trying to do is cover the entire model in all the nooks and crannies of everything and giving yourself a clean surface to work on. Okay, firstly, I'm just going to get some surface primer, and I'm going to use some airbrush thinner. Generally, I do like a 3-to-1 kind of ratio with thinner to primer. Just depends on what kind of needle you've got with this, but if you're using an aerosol can, well, you don't have to worry about any of the ratio situation here. This is one of those moments that you really want to use the worst brush that you have at your disposal. So you can see that this is a broken Winsor Newton. I don't care about it anymore. So this is a great brush for this purpose. Just take that and just go in and give it a good stir. Before you start shooting, it is worth doing a little test on something. And so I need a piece of paper and just give it a check. You can see it's building up, and that's perfect. I don't want it to be super thick. I want it to be quite light because I really want control of it. Excellent, let's get to it then. Here it goes. This is one of the reasons why I really like having an airbrush, is that I can reach those hard to reach places on a miniature, and rather than using an aerosol can, which sometimes you just like miss some of the hard to reach spots, things like that. So yeah, that's one Chaos Space Marine probably done. I'm gonna wait for it to dry, but now I'm gonna go to the Imperial Guard model. Just gonna check my pressure, and we're gonna start here and just build this up slowly, never using too much of it, and we don't want to ever blast it really. We'll make sure we're moving it around, but luckily I put enough thinner in that there should be no problem even if I do go a little crazy with it. So yeah, we're just trying to capture all the angles, especially the shadows. So yeah, that's really about it. It's not like the most fun subject, but it is the basis for all the things that we work from. We have gotten to our model, assembled everything that we need to do, we get to priming that model, and then we get to the fun part, which is painting. Thank you guys for watching. So much, so appreciated. You know, if you guys really enjoyed this video or like what we're doing, press the like, subscribe button. That would be super helpful to us to keep pushing out more and more of this content about miniature painting. And with that, I'm signing out.